There is a Jewish tradition to start speaking B'Shevach HaAchsania, praising the venue. And when I say the venue, I don't know if the Lieutenant Governor is still here. I don't mean Providence. Although Providence is a very nice city. And I don't even mean this convention center, which is really beautiful. When I say the venue, I mean Chabad. My personal story with Chabad starts in my first visit to the United States as a young adult. I was 20-something and visited for the first time New York City, and I wanted some Yiddishkeit. So I took the subway to Crown Heights. And it's a long story. I won't tire you with all the details, but suddenly, almost miraculously, I found myself davening mincha in 70 with the Rebbe. And I can assure you that that was an event that made an indelible impression on my soul. Since then, I follow Chabad closely. And I think that Chabad combines the two most, with incredible fervor, with incredible dedication, the two most important missions of Jewish life this day, to strengthen Eretz Israel and to strengthen Jewish life elsewhere. And I want to tell you, my friends, something very personal. It's very personal, but it is also national as it is personal. My father, my late father, crossed for the first time in his life an international border inside a potato sack. The year was 1921. The border was the border that then existed. It later moved, but the border between his native Ukraine and Poland. My dad was 6 months old. And the reason the family had to cross that border is that they had to flee the pogroms. We tend to forget, because later came a much bigger calamity, the Holocaust, the Shoah, but in those days in Ukraine alone, 50,000 Jews were murdered. So they decided that they have to flee to the very relative safety of Poland, and they waited for a moonless night, a dark night. But the problem was that my dad was, as I told you, 6 months old, and you can't tell him not to cry. And if he cries, they can be discovered by the gendarmerie either side of the border, and their fate is doomed. So my Bob and my grandmother put him inside a potato sack, and not only that, she muffled his mouth with a cloth. And they crossed the border, and when they arrived to the Polish side of the border, she opened with trembling hands the sack to see if he survived, which thank God he did. I thought about that story that I heard so many times from my father, Zichrono Livracha, when I was descending toward JFK, exactly 2 years to the day, 2 years ago, to serve as Israel's Consul General in New York. And I thought, here I am, his son, crossing an international border, the virtual border between the State of Israel and the United States of America, sitting in an airplane with a Hebrew-speaking crew, in the tail of the El Al aircraft, a Magen David, a Star of David, blue and white, and I am bearing a passport a diplomatic passport in whose cover is imprinted a menorah with two olive branches, the emblem of the State of Israel, and the Hebrew letters Yud, Sin, Resh, Aleph, Lamed, making the word Israel. And my thoughts while descending to JFK, also I knew that most probably there's going to be police waiting for me in JFK, but not to persecute me, to arrest me, probably or to kill me, God forbid, but to escort me, to protect me, and even probably to give me some form of honor as the representative of the Jewish state. And since then, I ask myself frequently, and I hinted to that in a previous session that some of you were present in, what are our greatest missions in this Jewish generation? And I want to explain what I mean. Do we have an extra mitzvah as Jews in this specific generation that is on top of the 613 mitzvot of the Torah? For instance, there was a Jewish generation not so long ago that have the extra mitzvah, the extra obligation to try to save the European Jewry from the Holocaust. Unfortunately, they failed. I'm not judging, maybe it was impossible, but they failed. And there was another Jewish generation that had the extra mitzvah of trying to rescue the Soviet Jewry. And thank God, Baruch Hashem, they succeeded. And you heard here today one of the heroes of that success, Rabbi Mendelevich. So do we have an extra mitzvah in this generation? And I think that yes, we do, we have two. One is to, as I already said, to strengthen Eretz Israel, to make sure that Jews return and settle and protect Eretz Israel, our promised land. And the second is to guarantee, to make sure the continuity of Jewish life elsewhere. That the miraculous, there is no other way to describe it, the miraculous chain that is the Jewish people, the Jewish history that started thousands and thousands and thousands of years ago with Avraham Avinu, and new persecutions and massacres and oppression and expulsions, but nevertheless was not broken, to make sure that it is not broken in this generation. And to prepare the ground to assure that they are not broken also in the coming generations. And I say this in this specific place and in this specific time because I look at you and I look at Chabad in general. And I think that that's exactly those two mitzvot what we are doing here. Summer, vacations. You could be elsewhere. I see persons from Miami Beach coming here to study instead of being in the beaches of Miami Beach. I see persons from many places that gather here for a few days to do exactly those extra mitzvot, to show solidarity with Eretz Israel, in some sense symbolized by the kind invitation of Rabbi Kotlarski to me to be here, and to fortify, to strengthen the Jewish roots, your Jewish roots, by learning and then transmitting them to others. And I think this is the essence of this retreat. Although I understand Rabbi Kotlarski doesn't like the word retreat. He says that retreat is going back, but maybe someday we will find another name for it. This is the essence of this retreat. This is the essence of Chabad in general. Strengthening Judaism, strengthening Eretz Israel, strengthening Jewish communities in thousands of places all over the globe. I was just last week, I was in St. Thomas in the Virgin Islands. Of course, I met Shaliach Chabad that spreads Judaism and makes sure that residents and visitors, residents and tourists can live and perform Jewish life while in that place. So I am deeply honored to be here. I want to convey the gratitude and the admiration of the State of Israel. And when I say the State of Israel, I don't mean only the government of Israel. I mean, no less important than that, Am Israel, the people of Israel, to Chabad, to each one of you that came here to teach or to learn, to make sure that Am Israel Chai. Thank you so much.
If you like that video, hit the subscribe button and notification bell below for hours of the best Jewish content online.